Well, hello. It's Thursday night, and you know what time it is. It's Thursday Night Live with Giselle. Welcome. This is the month of August, and at Pearls of Great Price Empowerment Services, we have declared this month to be the month of transition, the month of movement, the month of acceleration. And so tonight, I told you we'll be serving you good stuff all month. And tonight, I have a very special guest tonight, a colleague of mine, and she is just going to share her heart, share her expertise, share those pearls of wisdom. So, you know how we do it. You need to start dialing, call a friend, call your sister, call your mom, your aunt. Just tell everyone. Live with Giselle is on, and yes, I am Giselle, and we are going to have a TIME tonight with our discussion. And perchance, if you have never seen me before or you have never heard of this program, stay tuned. You will not be disappointed. So, without further ado, I am going to bring my guest in. Let's give her a warm Trinidad and Tobago welcome and a warm Pearls of Great Price welcome. Welcome, Tandy! And there she is. Tandy, if you were here in person, I would be welcoming you to Trinidad and Tobago. We would have gone to the beach, so I still have to give it to you. So next time.
Next time. I would love that. The beach sounds awesome.
Yes. So welcome, and thank you again for accepting the invitation to just share with my audience. Let me just read a bit about Tandy. She's very qualified to speak to us tonight. So I just want to give you a bit about her. Tandy Salter is a confidence coach for women in business and leadership. She holds a bachelor's degree in sociology and is currently pursuing her doctorate in organizational development and leadership. Tandy helps women get in touch with their true identity and build confidence to make the impact that they were designed to make. I love that they were designed to make. She's also an Amazon best-selling author, and you'll hear about those books a bit later. She's a motivational speaker and a podcaster. When she's not studying or working with clients, she can be found reading a good book or watching Netflix, a girl after my own heart. So, welcome again, Tandy, to the program Live with Giselle.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and to share with your audience.
Yes. And so tonight, as I said, Tandy, we've been focusing all month on the theme transition. And so every guest that would have come on thus far, they have focused on a different aspect of transition. So tonight, we're just continuing that conversation. And tonight, we're going to be dealing with reinventing you after a life fall. Many of us, we have falls like Humpty Dumpty, yeah? But what should we be doing? How should we be reinventing ourselves after a life fall? So Tandy is just going to share with us some nuggets, and I'm excited to hear her perspective on reinventing you after a life fall. Again, if you're on live with us, say hello. Welcome, Tandy. You know how we do it. And if you will be catching the replay, hashtag replay so I can come back and connect with you as well. So, Tandy, your consultancy is named Tandy Salter Unlimited. What's in a name? Why unlimited? What's the thinking behind that?
Because I don't believe that I am limited or my clients are limited. We can do anything that God gives us the ability to. So for me and my clients, or anyone really, there are no limits. So it's time for you to realize that you are unlimited and you have
Yes.
unlimited potential.
Wow. So every time you approach a client or you speak to women, that's your thinking, that's your position, that you are unlimited. And I think as they sense that about you, they catch on and they start to believe it for themselves. I love that. Exactly, because sometimes people would ask me, so why did you call pearls of great price empowerment services? And it's taken from that parable in Matthew, that you are a pearl of great price. The rich young ruler, he went and he sold all to come back and buy this pearl. And so if God is saying that of us, hey, who are we to argue with God? So I love that. You are unlimited. You are fearfully, you are wonderfully made. You are God's prized possession. So again, welcome to another session of Live with Jiselle. If you're on live, tell us hello. Let us, know that you're there as we speak with Tandy tonight. Tandy, I like to put things into context so that my viewers understand where we're coming from. So I'm going to throw some words at you and then we're going to take it from there. So, unpredictable, transition, reinvent. Do those words connect in any way? And if yes, why? Unpredictable, reinvent, transition.
Ooh, they definitely connect. They connect in so many different ways because life can be very, very unpredictable, and it forces us to go through the transitions and to grow into a better versions of ourselves. And sometimes you do have to reinvent yourself. And other times you're not really reinventing yourself, you're rediscovering yourself because you're removing the labels that society has placed on you, or that your family and friends may have placed on you because they had a vision of who they wanted you to be. So you're not always reinventing yourself. Sometimes it's just a matter of rediscovering who you really are.
People, you see what Tandy has done already. She has gone out of the gate. Oh my God. Tandy, I always tell them, get pen and paper. They need to. So it's not a matter of reinventing sometimes, but rediscovering. You are now discovering, but that blueprint has already been in place. Oh my goodness. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. And you mentioned another thing, rediscovering, because of the labels, external labels people would have placed on you. You now have to find what is the true label for your life and for yourself. And so all of this rediscovery is a part of the transitions that we would go through in life, you think?
Oh, yes, absolutely. For everything you go through in life, you're going to have a transition. You're going to have a growth period where you're restructuring or reinventing or even rediscovering something new. But it's part of the process, and the more you go through it and learn to love it, the easier it becomes. Because when you fight against the transition, that's when it gets hard.
I was just going to say, our last guest, she said the same thing. Resistance is futile because it's in the resistance that you find it's so hard. But as you just said, when you learn to love the process, that's when you can get the growth or the benefit out of it. I like that, Tandy. Denicia is here tonight. Good night, Denicia. Thank you for joining us. Share the live, Denicia. Let some other women come on and hear what Tandy has to say to us tonight. So I like to read, as we were discussing backstage as well. And one author states, as women and as leaders, we need to accept setbacks as a way of life. Do you agree with that statement?
Not completely.
Tell us why. I
Not
love this.
completely.
Okay.
Um, sure, there may be setbacks, but we don't have to accept them. Sometimes
Okay.
when we make a habit of accepting something, we feel like there is no other way, and we get stuck there. However, the Bible does teach us there's a time and a season for everything. And it also tells us that we will have trouble, but don't worry about it because God has already overcome everything. So don't worry about whatever trouble you see, whatever mountains you see, whatever giants you see. God has
Yes.
already defeated them and cleared a path for you. So
Yes.
if it happens, it happens, but know that God has a plan for you.
And I like that you're going back to the blueprint. So we should not accept anything that is outside of the blueprint that God has already laid out for us. So he doesn't say accept it, expect it probably, deal with it, but not accept it. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that because that's where sometimes you see that we get stagnant or we get into a comfortable zone and year in year out and we're still comfortable in this position, but and that's where sometimes God has to bring things in our way to shake us up a bit. So I
Absolutely.
like that perspective. Don't accept it, but you have to get the strategies to deal with it and to move to your next level. I really like that perspective. And so, Tandy, what about you? How did you get on this path of equipping women to tap into the leader within them? Why is leadership and seeing women operate at their fullest potential important to you? Did something happen? Was there a trigger that got you on this path?
Oh, it's a whole lot of triggers. I mean, where do I
Oh,
start?
where do you start?
Where do I start? It's a whole lot of triggers.
Yes.
I guess the biggest piece of it is the confidence piece first.
Okay.
A lot of times we experience situations or events or even bullying and things of that nature where it destroys our confidence. We forget who we are. We no longer believe in ourselves. We don't think we can do anything. So it's critical to rebuild the confidence. And I know I went through several moments where I lost my confidence from being told I was told I had too much book sense and not enough common sense and that I wouldn't make it in the world. I'm like, what is that? And
Okay.
then I went through a divorce where I felt like a failure as a woman. I had a
Yes.
miscarriage, and I felt like a failure as a woman because I didn't have a husband or children. And so I
Yes.
felt like a failure, and I had to learn how to rebuild my confidence. I had to learn how to go back to God and how He designed me and recognize that, okay, I'm a victor because He's already defeated the enemy. He already told me the weapons would form, but they won't prosper, and that He is greater than He was in the world. So I had to remember that and know that I'm created in God's image. So I'm like, okay, so we're gonna rebuild this confidence. And also, I've been working jobs, and from the research I've done so far, a lot of women don't speak up in leadership positions. A lot of women don't even nominate themselves to be in positions of leadership or won't apply for the open positions. And
Mm,
so for you to know that you are already a leader, because the truth of the matter is a leader is someone that influences or impacts anyone. If you're a mother, you're a leader because you influence your children every day.
yes.
You're a teacher, you're a leader. If you're a sister, you're a leader. If you're an aunt, an uncle, you're a leader because there's always somebody looking up to you and being influenced by your actions. So I work with women to pull that leader out of them so they can make an impact because we're all designed to serve each other and make an impact in the world. But you can't do it if you don't first recognize what's inside of you.
Oh, Tandy, so many things coming out of there. Let me start with this piece. Now, my ladies, they push the speakers, so please forgive them, and so I have to ask the questions on their behalf. You just said that you went back to God to start restructuring and redefining and reconfiguring your understanding of who you are in terms of regaining your confidence. But I'm hearing someone asking, you make that sound so easy. What was your view of God when you went through your divorce and you experienced your miscarriage? Was it really so easy to go back to Him to say, hey, God, help me? Tell us a little
No,
bit
no,
more.
no. It was not easy at all because at first I was actually kind of angry at first. I was like, okay, why is this happening? This doesn't make sense. And I'm like, God, tell me why. And one thing that I always heard growing up in the church, like from my mom and others, was that God was going to use my mess and turn it into a message. I had no
Okay.
idea how he was going to turn all of that into a message. So I'm like,
All the
how, how does this work? Like, God, we need to talk about this. And so it was really a process. And I remember recently I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I was saying, you know what? It took me a full 7 years after my divorce was finalized to really get to a full point of healing and truly be able to look back and reflect on all that I learned from the experience, all that I learned from my ex-husband. I even went back to my ex-husband. I was like, you know what? I wanted to apologize to you for my part in our marriage ending because I realized that it takes two people. And I realized
okay.
I made mistakes. So I was like, okay, 7 years, I'm feeling better. Let me reach out and apologize. Let me do what God is telling me to do and stop being so hard headed. Because trust me,
Yes.
apologizing was not easy.
I could imagine.
It was not easy, and it was like,
Yes.
okay, why, okay, God, what do I do next? But it was definitely a process. So when I say I
Mm-hmm.
went back to God, it was not something that happened overnight. It was a process,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
throughout the process, I learned to release more and more to God and trust God with more of it. And there's also, I tell people a lot of times, I'm like Jeremiah when we
Okay.
go to the scriptures. I'm Jeremiah because in the first chapter, when God tells Jeremiah that he formed him in his womb and he knew him, and he
Mm-hmm.
tells Jeremiah to go speak, Jeremiah says, "But I'm too young.
Okay.
What if they don't listen?" I'm like, that sounds like me right there. Like
Wow.
no one's gonna listen to me. I'm too young, but I'm reminded that God told Jeremiah that I will be with you. He
Yes.
said, "Don't be afraid of men in their faces." And I'm like, okay, he's telling me the same thing. So I liken myself to kind of being, I have those Jeremiah moments.
Yes.
And so I'm like, okay, God, we're going to make it through this. We're going to get through this
Now with me.
one day at a time and continue to grow.
Wow. So if you're kind of putting some steps in coming back after fall, going to God in honesty. God, this is me. This is where I am right now. Secondly, you had to learn to listen to God and hear his voice and understand his voice again. Obedience was part and parcel because he gave you some instructions. Go and apologize. And I'm sure he said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. That cannot be God.
God, are you really telling me to do this?
No.
It was not an easy process.
But eventually, because you wanted to go to the next level with God, you surrendered. And that's the next, after obedience comes full surrender. So coming back, bouncing back after life fall, it's a process, but it's doable because you are evidence that it's doable. And I thank God for your obedience so that you can come and share with us tonight. Another thing I heard you say about why you're championing the cause of pulling out the leaders in women. And this is what I say as well. In every sphere that you find yourself, you are a leader as a woman. So I don't want you to think this is just about being the corporate woman or the woman within the organization. As you said, you're a mother, you're a leader. You're an aunt, you're a leader. Wherever it's your sphere of influence. And I like that because as women, we underestimate our influence, yeah? And so we have to understand that wherever God would place us, we have to impact and we must influence. I really, really like that. When we think about transitions, Tandy, sometimes we like to script our lives. It must go from A, B, C in that linear fashion. But when you think about transition, it's unpredictable. It doesn't come in order. And sometimes we are caught off guard by transition. But what it does, it forces us to look inward. Has that been your experience through your many life transition that it forced you to look inside, look at Tandy in the mirror? Was that your experience?
Absolutely. Absolutely. True transition and growth does not happen if you're not willing to look at yourself. The best leaders are always the ones that are self-aware. You know your
Mm-hmm.
strengths, you know your weaknesses, you know what makes you cry, you know what makes you smile, what makes you laugh, you know when to ask for help, you know when to speak up, you know when to be quiet. When you are self aware, it makes the transition easier, it makes leading others easier. And I've always had to go back and really look at myself like, now, Tindy, is that what you're supposed to say? Is that what you're supposed
Okay.
to do? Like, is that what God told you to do? And if it wasn't what God told me to do, I had to go back and just follow
Wow.
instructions. I'm like, okay,
Wow.
go back, follow instructions.
Oh, and I know that had to be back and forth sometimes, okay,
Absolutely.
go back. That's not what I said. Go back. And
Absolutely. Like I had a conversation,
mhm,
and well, it was last month actually, where I was like,
yes,
you know what? I tried to fight God. I didn't want to do it. And they looked at me, they said, now you know better than me that you cannot
yes,
fight God. God is
yes.
always going to win. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. God is always going to win. I can fight all I want, but he's going to win.
He is going to have the final say. And we have to just realize that and okay, give up the struggle. I like what you said. True transition and growth does not happen without being self-aware. Because what happens if you're not allowing that whole process of becoming self-aware, you go around in cycles. And that's why we see so many cycles in our lives. And you're like, I didn't go through that before. Well, probably you
Mhm.
didn't take the time to slow down and look inwardly. What do you think about that? How
Absolutely.
those cycles?
I think it's true. It's Jonathan McReynolds' song. It's called Cycles.
Oh
And in,
yeah.
and in the song he says the devil learns from your mistakes even if you don't.
Say that again, Tandy.
He says the devil will learn from your mistakes even if you don't. So you'll
Mm.
keep going in the same cycles until you learn, because the devil's going to use that same thing to keep attacking you, to keep distracting you, to keep bringing you down,
Wow.
because he saw what happened to you. But once you learn through this, through the transition, through the lesson,
Yes.
you're able to overcome the devil and defeat him, because
Wow.
you have more power than you realize.
Yes. Wow, wow, wow. I love that. Even though you don't learn, he knows.
Mm.
And you could be in cycles for so long and not know how to break this cycle or how to come out of it. And that's why you are important, Tandy, to coach women and to help them out of this cycle. Wow, 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 wow. If you are just joining us, this is key information. We are speaking about reinventing you after a life fall. And Tandy is sharing from her heart. She's sharing her expertise and schooling us on how we can bounce back and how we can really strategically move on after a life fall. Tandy, life falls could be anything. So when you thought about reinventing you after a life fall, what examples of life falls came to you?
Oh my goodness, there's so many different falls. um, there's grief. My mother passed in 2009. There is grief from miscarriage. There is divorce. There is um, ending bad relationships, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a romantic relationship. Some cases, even distancing yourself from family members. It's a lot of different falls
Mm,
that you can have, or that
mm,
I and some many I have had it myself. But what I've learned how to recuperate after each one. And one thing
yes.
that I tell everybody is to journal. I love to
Okay.
write. I've always loved to write. So I write things out. I write out how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what I'm going through, and what I hope to see in the future. And it really helps to release this. It's like it's a therapeutic thing for me. So definitely do that.
Wow.
And also, of course, get some wise counsel around you. Get you a
Mm-hmm.
coach, a mentor,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
therapists. Therapists are wonderful. Stop avoiding
Mm.
them. Therapists are amazing.
Candy, that's for another show. But I'm glad that you said it because in the church world, we have a love-hate relationship with the word therapy.
I
Some of us believe that as Christians, we shouldn't. There is no need to. We have Jesus, and Jesus is all we need. But I think we have come full circle in understanding that we can have both. We need both, and because God has raised up Christian therapists to use the
absolutely.
word and to help his people. So I'm glad that you brought that up as a technique in coming back after fall. If you need help outside of your pastor, by all means, seek that help. And that's so key. Tandy, you spoke about the corporate world and understanding your place and your role as a woman and as a leader. But let's bring that thinking into transitions and coming back after a life event, a disruption in your life. And you would be familiar with the word competencies in the organization. So I'm going to ask you, what competencies would women need to have if they have to come back from a life force? So just as in the job, you have to have this competency or that competency to execute your job well. What competencies would you advise that we need to adapt and get if we have to come back from a life fall?
I think you just answered the question right there when you
I
said
did.
you did when you said adapt.
Okay.
We have to learn how to adapt and be flexible.
Ah.
What if you fall, anytime you fall in life, learn to adapt and be flexible. Just like
Mhm.
right now with the current pandemic, there are a lot of people who are saying they want things to go back to normal. They don't like this. They're tired of the situation that we're in.
Mhm.
However, the world is changing. Everything will be different whenever the
Yes.
pandemic ends. So be flexible, grow through the storm, grow through the transition. Don't get so stuck in what you know. And because what
Right.
happens is you get comfortable. And when you get comfortable, you get stuck in complacency. When you get stuck in
Mhm.
complacency, you go nowhere.
Okay. So is relearning a part
Mhm.
of that? You have to expand your knowledge base, you would think. As
Absolutely.
so what
Always
kind
be
of
willing to
relearning?
learn.
Yeah, what kind of relearning or learning we should be getting involved in? Could you suggest?
Absolutely. You always want to be willing to learn and open to learning when it comes to transitioning throughout your life, whether it's on a job or something personal. You want to look at what it is that you're experiencing,
Hmm.
okay, and ask yourself, what can I learn from this?
Okay.
So, like in my case, when like my mom passed and then I went through a divorce, I had to look at myself and say, okay, what can I learn from this? And
Okay.
what I learned is that I depended on my mom and my ex-husband for a whole lot of things. So
Hmm.
even though I was taught how to stand on my own, I was not
Hmm.
using those skills because I was depending on them to hold me up. So I had to
Wow.
learn how to use the skills and really be the independent person and stand on my own 2 feet because the
Yes.
two people I depended on the most to support me, to encourage me, I no longer had by my side.
Wow. And I think that's one of the first lessons when you're flat on your back, quote unquote, you've just experienced that Humpty Dumpty experience, is okay, where are the people, my people who I or the things we hold on to, that okay, I can't do it without them. And if they are no longer there, I think one of the first lessons or competencies we have to learn is how to make it on our own now. And we have to do that quickly. They can't be a crutch anymore. Uh,
Exactly.
and creating a sense of false dependency on them. And so when they are no longer there, we are like, I don't know what to do. So as women, we need to understand that yes, God would place people in our lives, but at the same time, our dependency is on Him and in Him. I really I like the feel of the discussion because it's kind of sobering when you think about it. We will fall and we will fall many times, but we can get up and we can continue this race. We can continue walking effectively. But a big part of it that we like to rush through is the lessons that we're supposed to
Mm.
learn.
Yes.
We don't like to sit and, okay, as you said, you asked yourself, what should I be learning from this experience? Any other lesson that you learned you want to share with us? So you learned, okay, I need to be self-sufficient again. I need to be able to do life with God. Let's do this. Any other lesson that you want to share with us?
Ooh, I learned a lot. One thing I
Give us
definitely
some.
learned, I would say I learned how to be more patient
So that's a competency. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and also be more careful with my words.
Hmm.
Like I'm gonna tell on myself for a minute. There
Okay.
there were times within my marriage where my ex-husband would want to do something and I would like, no, don't do that. That's stupid. That's a bad idea. And it was discouraging to him. And that's
Okay.
not how we are designed. We should be encouraging each other, lifting each other up. So I learned to be more careful with my words because if the shoe was on the other foot, I would have been hurt had he spoke to me the way I spoke to him sometimes.
Yes.
So I had
Oh.
to evaluate myself and be mindful of my words and go back to Proverbs and remember that life and death is in the power of our tongue.
I want to ask a question. So you were able to evaluate and own your role in the divorce that was a life fall. How did that make you feel that you were able to see where you had a part to play in your own fall? You understand where I'm coming from?
Absolutely. In the beginning, it was difficult and I placed a lot of blame on myself. So I placed a heavy burden on myself. But as I
Okay.
went through the process of healing and recognizing the lessons learned, I felt myself get free. I felt
Mm.
the burden was being lifted from me. I
Yes.
felt I was able to get rid of the shame and the embarrassment. I
Yes.
promise you about 3-4 years ago, I would have never told you this. I would have never opened up like this about it because I was
Yes.
still holding on to shame and embarrassment and
Yes.
disappointment. But I've
Yes.
learned because I've taken the time to go through the process, I've gotten free from it and been able to lift it
Amen.
up and use it
Yes.
as part of my story to help other women. Because
Yes.
even if it's not a divorce, you went through something where you felt shame or embarrassment,
Yes.
and I can help you through the process.
You see, I asked that because I could hear someone saying, if I take ownership of my part, oh my God, and you could stay stuck there as well. But as you said, no, okay, you identify your role, but you don't stay in condemnation. You move on through the process to freedom through healing that comes from God. And I really want to emphasize that it's a process. It's healing to help you to come back from a life fall. I am really glad you explained that. That's really good. That's really good. Did you feel a sense, okay, so it's a process, but it's not going to always be on go. There would be times in the process where you would feel, okay, I can't do this. What did you do in those times where this doesn't make any sense? I can't do this, God. Well, what did you do? How did you get out of that funk?
I still keep my journal, so I may have written out everything I was feeling and I was thinking about. And I
Mm-hmm.
also went to some close friends of mine because I have a very small circle because one, I'm introverted, so I don't like to be
Yes.
around a lot of people. But
Okay.
also selective of the people around me because I want to make sure that they're wise people, that they're like-minded people, that they're Christians and they follow God. So I can go to them and they can say, okay, well, we're going to pray with you. Or
Mhm.
Sandy, now, what did God tell you? It's like they remind me to go back to what God told me to do and not be
Yes.
hard-headed because I can be a little stubborn sometimes. So they definitely
Okay.
remind me of that. And it's amazing that I can pick up the phone at any time and they said, okay, I'm gonna pray with you. And those are the type of people
Yes.
that we all need, not people just gonna
Yes.
say, yeah, go ahead and do it, knowing it's a bad idea. You need people that's gonna tell you to stop. You need people that are gonna pray with you. You're gonna need
Yes.
people to remind you of what you're supposed to do and what your
Mhm.
responsibilities are. Don't just
Yes.
surround yourself with yes men, because that will end up hurting yourself.
Yes. Yes. And you answered my next question because I was going to ask you, what's the importance of your circle? You know, we like buzzwords and we use the word tribe these days, your tribe, but that group, that inner circle, what's the importance? And you just answer, you need an inner circle to help you come back from a life fall. So you need a mentor, but you also need like-minded people around you who will keep you on track, who would keep you accountable, and who will tell you as it is according to the word of God in love and to get you through. You're not an island. And I think as women, sometimes we don't tap into the power of that community, that circle of women that God would place in our lives. So I'm glad you brought that point up, that it's necessary in reinventing yourself, in rediscovering yourself. Ask God, show me who to connect with. I need that circle, God. Help me to find them. And He will. He will show. And you found them. And I know you hold them dear to your heart even to today. Yeah?
Absolutely. I keep them
Yeah.
very close.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I think I don't know if this is one of your circle, Constance. Constance is saying she is so proud of you, and she prays that you will continue to let God use you. So she is being blessed by your testimony. So again, if you want to ask Tandy any question, please place them in the comments. This is the program Live with Jiselle, brought to you by Pearls of Great Price Empowerment Services. And my guest is Tandy Salter from Columbus, Georgia. She is a confidence coach and she helps women tap into the leader in them, tap into that confidence, and be all who God created you to be. So we thank Tandy for being here tonight. So we're going to land the plane pretty soon. Our time, it just goes so fast. But I have a little more again, and I want to get you to look at this. So I'm painting a scenario for you.
Okay.
We know that throughout our life, as long as we keep living, we would have falls, we would experience transition. Will we ever come to a place where we can say, okay, I'm on top of this, I am well equipped, and I could handle any transition that I would face? Are you in that position now? Would we ever be in that position where we speak like that we could handle anything because we feel that we are now equipped?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
How,
Um,
how, how can we have that assurance?
Keeping that circle around you,
Mm,
remembering who God is and what He told you. Because I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. And I know
mm,
that in any area where I'm weak, He is strong. And I know
mhm,
that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I know
mm.
that He's already declared me more than a conqueror. So even if I have a moment where I'm questioning things or I feel unsure, I can always come back to it and say, you know what? That's not what God told me.
That's what
I can
God.
always come back to it and say, you know what? God told me that I'm a masterpiece and that
Yes.
I'm more than a conqueror. I can always come back and say, you know what? God told me He knew me before He formed me in my mother's womb, and He called me
Yes.
for such a time as this. So even
Yes.
if I have a moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on. Wait. God didn't put that in me. He didn't give me the spirit of fear. He gave me love. He gave me joy. He gave me a sound mind. He gave me peace. So even when the fear tries to creep in, I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't want this. I'm gonna give it back to the devil because that's not from God. I only want what's
Yes.
from God. So
Yes.
yes, we have moments where we feel fear or uncertainty or we struggle, but because we're human. But at the end of the day, we're God's creations and we're created in his image for greatness,
Yes.
and we can do the great things that he told us to do. So always keep your circle around you, because when you can't remind
Wow.
yourself, your circle will remind you and say, you know what, remember what you've already accomplished, remember what God told you.
Remember what you've already accomplished. Remember what God has told you. And Tandy, I'm going to be honest and I'm going to take the liberty to speak for you as well. We are coaches. I directed by God, he outlined you're a vision coach, and I'm assuming he would have done the same to you. You are a confidence coach. But sometimes the vision coach and the confidence coach need a coach, yeah? We need that,
Absolutely.
we need that pep in our steps sometimes, because sometimes it's like, I'm losing my vision. God, where are you? I can't see you and I don't understand where I'm going. And I'm sure you would have those periods where I don't feel confident at all. God, you really think I should be speaking to people about confidence? But I'm glad what you said. No, 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 no. Wait, wait, wait. And speak what God says about us. And
Absolutely.
that's when we would get back on track with being what he called us to be on this earth. That's so comforting. Yeah. Good
Yes.
night, great joy. Thanks for joining us. Hope you have been enjoying the conversation. Last question. Final thoughts. I know you would have given us so many pearls throughout, but last three. If you were to speak to women now and to encourage them to just develop that resilience to come back after a life fall, what's the three things you would tell them?
Ooh,
Any
just
new
three?
three things? If you have more, give us more.
Just
But
three? Ooh, just three to develop your resiliency and build your confidence after a life fall.
yes.
The fall is not permanent, it's only
Ah,
temporary.
oh gosh.
The- Life is not over when you fall. It's
My
only
God.
over if you decide to stay down, because you can always get back up.
Oh my God.
It's only temporary.
Wow.
See,
Woo.
it's only temporary, so you can get back up. It is okay to say no to other people. A lot of times when we fall and we're trying to bounce back, it's hard because we're still saying yes to everybody else and no to you. So it's okay to set boundaries and tell other people no, whether it's your family, your friends, your best friend, and sometimes your children, if you have children. Sometimes you have to say no. I need to do this for me so that you can rebuild yourself and bounce back. And never stop learning and never stop growing. Life is a continuous process. You're always learning and always growing. So stay open to learning, to growing, to new experiences, so that you can continue to bounce back and continue to stand up and continue to stand up after you've had a fall.
Oh my God. You hit it out of the park, Tandy. Number one, the fall is not permanent. It's only temporary. It's only permanent if you decide to stay down. Number two, set boundaries. Learn to say no to others and say yes to you. It's okay. You're not being selfish. In that period where you're getting up after a fall, you need to say yes to you as instructed by God. And thirdly, never stop growing, never stop learning. Transitions, it's all about expansion, acceleration. So never, never stop growing and learning. Tandy, thank you so much. We have just landed the plane. Oh, wow. God is so good. And at that first point alone, we could spend another hour just break. but I
We could.
we could just spend the next hour breaking that down. And if you get nothing else tonight, ladies, the fall is not permanent. It's temporary. And you hinted at, living in shame through your process and getting up after your particular falls. And sometimes that's where the enemy, he would keep us in that place of shame because we have fallen, but it's okay to fall. There's no shame. There should not be any shame. And as long as we understand that, we can get up. We can get up. And we would not be like Humpty Dumpty, where all the king's horses and all the king's men could not put Humpty together again. No, we serve a savior who can put us back together again because he is the potter and the potter can put us back together again. Tandy, I want to thank you again on behalf of the ladies who tune in to Live with Jiselle, to Pearls of Great Price Empowerment Services. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your pearls of wisdom you shared with us tonight. Ah, it,
Thank
it, it's like
you.
it's like just a settling, you just know that you could move on after a life fall. And I thank you for sharing your wisdom and your heart with us for being so transparent. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You are
Ah,
welcome. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
yes. And one day when Mr. COVID has gone wherever and we see him no more, you have to come to Trinidad and
Of
Tobago.
course, I'm ready right now. Soon as
And
Corona goes away, I'm ready. Let's go.
let's go. Hey, hey, Giselle. So, ladies, this has been another program of Live with Giselle. And so, as I said, all month we'll be coming back serving and sharing. So, you have to keep tuning in. So, until next time, God bless you. Tandy, God bless you. And we will keep connected. Until next time, ladies, bye.